After a 6-year hiatus, Curb Your Enthusiasm is back with a new season. For dedicated Curb fans like myself, this is
pretty good! Pretty good!
In the recent Today Show interview with the cast of Curb, Matt Lauer echoed a question that has been asked pretty much since the show's inception 17 years ago.
It is unscripted.
Yes.
Is that a thing? Is that really, can it really be completely unscripted? So do scenes just go on and on forever?
No.
How do you kind of have a beginning, middle, and end to them?
Now, I realize many of the people watching this might be a bit more savvy about this subject than Matt Lauer. However, the reason this question keeps getting asked is that Larry really does have a unique way of writing and shooting Curb Your Enthusiasm. And as a result, his methods may seem a bit mysterious. This video will attempt to clear up a bit of that mystery for you and break down Larry's creative process. Because no one can answer this question better than Larry himself, this video includes a compilation of clips from interviews with Larry or his Curb colleagues that cover his process, and there's a bit of commentary from me thrown in as well.
You know what? I'm not interested in your creative input about anything.
So, if you'd like to learn how to write comedy like a true social assassin, let's get started.
How does it get from the idea to screen?
You know, I walk around with a little pad, and whenever I get an idea, I jot it down. And then I have another book where I take all the ideas and I put them in another book.
In your best handwriting?
In my best handwriting, yeah. So before I write a show, I'll just, look in the books, and then I'll think, oh, that would be funny to do with that. Oh, those two ideas really would work well together. I have a notebook filled with ideas. I write down ideas when I think of them, and sometimes it's like driving a cab. You can go, hours, not hours, but in this case, weeks without getting one. But when I was doing the show, when I was into it, and that was like my main focus, coming up with ideas. So everything was an idea. It didn't matter how bad it was, I was writing everything down that I could. It could be a scene, could be a whole story, could be a movie. Little things that you find amusing. And I'll get an idea, and then I'll start looking at some of my other ideas, and I'll go, oh, this one, all of a sudden, some of the ideas start to connect with me. And so I pick out my Mission Impossible team.
Keeping a notebook or note device is pretty standard for any creative person. It's good to have one on hand at all times because you never know when an idea will strike, or when you'll forget it either. But I think there's an important detail to note here. Larry doesn't walk around with his little notebook and wait for crazy things to happen to him. In reality, his life is probably somewhat mundane, at least compared to his show. He is inspired by events that occur in his life, but the ideas come by considering the possibilities that those events present.
When I was out to dinner, and I said to the guy, thanks very much for the dinner, and the woman said, aren't you going to thank me? Oh, of course, thank you too, yes. As soon as I left the restaurant, don't thank woman for dinner.
Why do I have to thank you?
For dinner? That my husband and I treated you to?
Oh, I thought he treated me to it.
So something like that came up in my life. I thank the wife. I'm not a sociopath. I can't say that, But I knew immediately that this is something I want to do on the show. Nobody ever expresses the bad thoughts. We just think them and we don't say them.
Yeah.
But the bad thoughts are funny.
As with this last example, Larry was in a situation like this, but in reality he thanked the wife for the dinner. He considered, however, what might happen if he didn't thank the wife, and of course, in Larry's imagination, her reaction is the worst-case scenario. What would often be implied or subtle in normal social interaction is blown up to a full-fledged confrontation in Larry's fictional world. Because, let's face it, that's way funnier. Or as Jeff Garlin sums up here,
because conflict creates comedy.
So, if you're walking around with your little book, don't wait for crazy things to happen. Consider the crazy things that could happen if you indulged the bad thoughts.
How does it work when you're writing? So you write Larry rants about something? I mean...
Most of the time, yeah. It's an outline. Seinfeld was a script and all the dialogue was written.
Right.
Everybody had their lines. That scene you just saw, there were no lines.
Larry just writes, what, about a 5-page outline for the show?
2 pages off.
I'm 2 pages off.
Yeah,
7 page.
Yeah. There are at least 7 pages and sometimes 8, yeah.
But it's basically the scenes. It's
an outline of what the scenes are, right. And then the show is improvised.
And then the show is improvised.
It's like a 7-page outline, and there's maybe a paragraph about what each scene is about. But there's no dialogue written.
Some people wonder how Larry gets such structured narratives from a simple outline with no dialogue. Consider, first of all, that Larry wrote a sitcom in the standard script format for 7 seasons. At this point, story structure comes naturally to him, but it may not come naturally to you. So, look up and study sitcom structure or whatever kind of narrative structure you wish to work in, and use that as a template to weave those bad thoughts and random ideas together into an outline.
Larry and Monine are zipping along in the express lane. Larry tells her he doesn't want any sex, but he'll pay her for a time. She's never been paid for a time before. And she tries to figure out how many blowjobs and other forms of sex she'd normally have within that period, which Larry, of course, disputes. So, you know, there's tracks to go on here.
There's actually more there than I imagined, because it's like you're laying down the jokes, really.
There's nothing to write, really. All I have to do is just say what people are going to say, but I know what they're going to say because it's so simple because of the way the scene is constructed. So here, I just thought, well, why even memorize? I'm not even an actor, anyway.
Larry is so adept at creating humorous situations that he really doesn't need dialogue. When the cast or anyone else read his outlines, they can immediately tell how the humor will play out, because it's obvious from the scene description. In a sense, Larry has already set up the humor, and all the actors need to do is run with it. Although, in order to do that, every actor needs to be a great improviser, and this is why he emphasizes auditions during the casting process.
You know, if you've auditioned the actors, you've seen it at the audition, so you're confident that you'll get it, and you normally do.
Usually the actors audition, so I'll read with them at the audition.
Okay.
And that's when I really know that I feel secure in that somebody I like is doing the part.
And we do it at the audition.
Okay.
So this is the second time we're doing it, because the one who gets the job gets to do it again.
Because the cast is working without scripted dialogue, the scenes have a level of authenticity and spontaneous humor that they wouldn't otherwise. In fact, Larry prefers to keep the cast somewhat in the dark about plot details, in order to capture the most genuine reactions to the material.
Cheryl doesn't know anything, really. Yeah.
Perhaps that's best.
She started asking me for the outlines in the first year. I said, just show up and I'll tell you what to do. You know?
I would drive to whatever address they gave me that day. I didn't know what the show was about. I didn't know what the scene was about.
I'll tell her things that she really needs. I said, don't forget to ask me about why I'm wearing the same pants as I wore yesterday. You know, Richard Lewis, I would never give the script to.
Yeah,
because
he hates that, doesn't
he? He hates it because I caught him cheating, you know.
Oh.
Because we started doing a scene and I heard a line that sounded jokey to me, and I said, "You're cheating. You're coming up with your jokes."
Usually, when you have a script that's you have to memorize, you're just like waiting for the other person to finish, and you could say your line. Whereas we actually really have to listen to each other and really act.
I want spontaneity. I don't want, because otherwise you're thinking of how you're going to inject your joke into the scene, and you're not being there.
Larry finds real social interaction far funnier than scripted jokes, and by filming this way, he can get the most natural, least jokey performances possible.
I don't know anything about that stuff. I like blocking scenes. I like directing actors.
Right.
But I don't think that I'm Mr. Visual.
I'm not going to focus much on directing here, as Larry doesn't technically direct the show. Unless I'm talking about Larry Charles, who along with Robert B. Wade, Brian Gordon, and a number of other directors handle the technical aspects of shooting. However, Larry David is still very much involved in all aspects of the storytelling process, so while he doesn't direct the show per se, the director will work closely with him. It should be noted that the directing style of the show is usually attempting to be an anti-style, meaning you're not intended to notice it.
I mean, I don't like if I'm watching a comedy and I especially notice the direction. I don't want to notice it. Yeah. I want to just follow the story.
The mockumentary-style special about Larry's return to stand-up that inspired Curb Your Enthusiasm pretty much set the tone for the directing style of Curb. The series scrapped the whole documentary concept, but the handheld documentary visual style persisted. Which brings us to the final stage of Larry's creative process, and an especially important one for a show like Curb Your Enthusiasm.
After we do a take, then we'll shape it a little bit. Don't say this. I think you should bring this up. I'll give him some notes, or bring that up, and then we'll do maybe 4, 5, 6 takes. And then I'll just piece together in editing all these different takes, and you'll get like the all-star team of takes.
Because Curb is largely improvised, the editing stage is especially crucial in order to get the best from a wide variety of improvised takes.
Curb especially, the show was really written in editing, because we did 6, 7, 8 takes. A lot of them are all different because it's improvised.
Right.
So you had to sort of piece it together a lot of times.
Clever editing is necessary to maintain some semblance of continuity. But as I've noticed while watching Curb over the years, Larry has never been overly concerned with continuity. After all, continuity is only necessary to communicate the sequence of events. Beyond that, using the best or funniest take is far more important. Minor inconsistencies in continuity are forgivable when sacrificed for better performances.
It's interesting.
You're damn right. So I'm making
Slightly
sense.
less stupid. You're making a little sense, but...
I'm making stupid sense.
So, that's hopefully all you need to know in order to write and shoot your own version of Curb Your Enthusiasm. If there is an important aspect of Larry's process that I missed, please let me know what it is in the comments below. Or if there's another writer or filmmaker whose creative process you want me to cover, let me know who it is. And be sure to like the vid and subscribe for more creative process breakdowns. Until next time.